Well, welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Sean right here in the Rock Rage Radio Network, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. And I talk a lot about networking, and we have it here 100% live with this next gentleman, Mr. Jimi Bell. He's the guitar player with House of Lords. Interviewed James Christian last week, and another friend of mine who has the Laughing Monkey podcast, Sean, said, you got to talk to Jimi. So we got him. How are you, sir?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry about the time messed up on a couple things, but I'm glad we were able to reschedule and get everything all where it was supposed to be, all in the same day too. So that was good.
a couple musicians got her done, my friend. So we were talking just before we started recording. We'll go into it, but you've got some Canadian connections, which is very cool. But I want to hit you with something right out of the gates. I met with I interviewed James last week, and he said two things. He said Jimi Bell is the finest guitar player I've ever played with. And he said that because you're a lefty, it makes you that much better.
Yeah, I'm a lefty, which is the sort of the reason I spelt my name like Jimi Hendrix, the Jimi thing. Not that well, I mean, Jimi influenced everybody, but he wasn't like my main guy as I was becoming a guitar player. I totally loved him, but my main people were Johnny Winter. I learned his style of playing, his blues style, but he had a lot of fast chops too, which I really loved. And then, of course, Ritchie Blackmore was my main guy. And then I discovered Al Di Meola, and then and that's where I learned all my fast picking skills. So I kind of like took those three guitar players and kind of meshed them into a ball to create what I do.
Ritchie Black, I'm a drummer, and I've always said Ritchie Blackmore to me was one of those guys that he just sounded different from other guitar players.
He is.
Maybe, I don't know, classical background, I don't know what it was, but he just sounded different from people that were playing in his era. You're saying basically your biggest influence is Ritchie Blackmore?
Yeah, and there's things about Ritchie that I vary on things that I like to play and everything. So there's so much you can learn from him playing wise. But one of the things that I did learn from him that has nothing to do with his playing, his actual playing style, is I learned that you don't have to play the same solo twice. Ritchie is one of these guys that will play whatever the hell he feels like on that particular day. Even if something was recorded and it's a signature thing that you're waiting for him to play, we will. You never know what he's going to do, and that's what makes it that much more incredible.
I'd be interested as a guitar player, Jimi, to get your take on what seems to be a bit of a hot topic these days. Well, two hot topics, really. One would be the whole backing tracks thing, but the second one is the tuning down to, I guess, save a singer's voice. I actually had a conversation with Michael Sweet. He said he agonized over it because he thought he was going to be thought of differently, and he said it's probably saved his voice by 10 years.
Oh, my God. Absolutely. I have no problem with that. Matter of fact, I prefer it, honestly. House of Lords has tuned down a half step ever since I joined the band back in 2005. When I play with Autograph too, which is now called Autograph Beyond. We added that. But ever since I joined the band, that band's a whole step down. And because it just fattens up the guitars tremendously. There's something about the music that sounds better to me personally. And I can understand where singers that have a legacy of, singing where they used to, and people saying, they're tuned down, they can't hit it. You know what? A singer's voice is that's one of the first things to go. And singers have to compensate for what they can't do anymore. Because what's the point of a band going out and playing and having everything tuned up to the way they were back there. And the poor guy that's singing is struggling because they're not tuning down. To me, that doesn't make any sense. So what if you tune down? Tune down a step and a half even. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, Motley Crue, I mean, I know everybody, ribs, about it cuts on Vince and everything, but Motley Crue is tuned down for ever since I could remember. They're down a whole step, and they've always had a huge fat sound on their songs. There's just something about it I really like. And you look at singers that really can't sing the notes anymore. And they alter things, which is fine because honestly, bands from our genre, our era, the people want to see them. Right. And if the singer can't hit all the notes anymore, there'll be the what do they call keyboard warriors that'll be cutting them up and whatever. Yep. But the fans will still go to see them because those are the guys they kind of grew up with. It's one of those things. So it's a tough call, but I understand what Michael was saying about that. But listen, I'm friends with Michael. We do shows together. We're all with the same agency. Slaughter, I'm very good friends with Mark Slaughter. Matter of fact, this guitar player was just texting me while we're doing this, right. Jeff. And they've been down a whole step for a long time, and Mark's voice is way the heck up there, So, and he still can hit every note there is. It's
Well, so there's interesting, and you mentioned the Autograph Beyond piece because I mean, there was a show up here in Canada a number of months. It was August, I'm sorry, and there was some classic Canadian bands, and then Nazareth was on the bill, but every single one of them had different people from the original. People pass away, people quit, they don't want to do it anymore. My contention's always been, if you don't want to see it, don't pay the money to see it. But people, to your point, they still want to see the songs.
Yeah, exactly. And when Autograph had gotten back together in 2013, they did ask the original singer Steve Plunkett, but he wanted nothing to do with the band. So they had three guys. They had Steve, the guitar player, Randy, and Kenny Richards, the drummer, and right. They hired Simon Daniels, the singer that's still in the band, and that was back in 2013. Well, right after the band got going, Kenny had died, the drummer, and then in 2019, Steve decided he didn't want to play with Autograph anymore. He was going to do a band with his fiance at the time. Different style of music. He wanted to get out of it. He didn't want to do anything with the band. And so we had Randy, and Randy, the bass player, Randy Rand, wanted to continue. So they gave me a call. They knew me, and I learned everything. I was a good fit for the band, and we continued on. And then, unfortunately, a couple of years back, Randy passed away. So there's things that happen, you're talking about even the original keyboard player from Autograph had passed away many years ago. Right. So either people don't want to do it or they're passing away, but there's still tons of people that want to hear the songs and everything. So that's what Autograph Beyond is, and honestly, Mark, the drummer, and Simon have been in the band since 2013. That's a long time. That's over 10 years. You're going on 11 years. I mean, what are you supposed to do? That's longer than the original band lasted. You know what I'm saying? So, it's, and we got albums out. In fact, that's why with all the legal stuff that went on, because Steve wanted the rights to the name, we decided to use Autograph Beyond because that was the name of the album that I came up with, because I recently had done a record with them and on Frontiers, and it was called Beyond. So we just said that's perfect. That's exactly saying what we're all about. The music went beyond what normal. So we're doing that. We do all the old songs still that we had in our repertoire, and we do a bunch of the new ones from when they did the Get Off Your Ass album, and then we do a bunch from the Beyond album. So it's a great connection. You know, it just works out great. And House of Lords, well, this is our 10th album. So I
Right.
mean, we've got a catalog and a half, because when we play live, we also have to honor the original lineup. You know, we have to play, you know, off the first two records, you know, and then the third one, the Demons Down record. So you know, there's a lot of music to play there. We actually, you know, because our records did really well too, especially right from the start, the World Upside Down record. When we were touring, um, it was a matter of, you know, we have to pick what's going to work.
I always like to ask people that are still, and I mean, the word genre to me, I guess, is a little weird. I mean, like it you know, because it implies that the music kind of died or went away, but it never went away. It's just kind of, you know, people kind of pivoted or
It did
shifted.
go
But
away.
well,
It
I
went away
suppose,
it went away in the USA. That was a tough thing when Nirvana came in. That music got, when the Seattle thing, the Nirvana thing came. That's why House of Lords isn't bigger than they should be.
yeah, yeah.
They got signed. Gene Simmons signed that band right towards the end of the 80s, you know, 88, 87, 88. And they were starting to make some steam. And then all of a sudden, you know, Nirvana came in, and every one of those bands, unless you were a huge hair metal band like Motley, Poison, I always say AC/DC, but they're a whole different thing anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you were a huge band like that, there were so many of those bands that kind of got swallowed up in that. But that might have happened in America, but that's why all these bands went over to Europe and toured, because over there, all those bands were still extremely popular. And all those 80s bands were able to make a living going on tour in Europe.
It's like we rehearsed this ahead of time, Mr. Bell, because my question was going to be, it seems to me now, all over the place, this genre, if you will, just seems to be as popular as it ever was. You know, you're having like all these festivals, and you're having bands that are, you know, going out on short tours, and everybody just seems to be doing, you know, it's hard to make money in this business now without touring and merch and what have you. But why do you figure that it's like that now?
Well, you know, for a while, really, you had to go to Europe and everything. Now in the US, there's a lot of 80s bands playing a lot of those packages. You have the Monsters of the Rock Cruise, you got Monsters on the Mound, you have all these other big festivals that are all 80s stuff. And people are all cycling around again. They all want to relive their past. You know, when you go to these shows, like when we play, like we're you know, Autograph is with we're with Sullivan Big Time Entertainment, and they handle so many of those acts. You know, Striper, Slaughter, Vixen, us, Black and Blue, Queensryche. They handle Vince Neil's solo project.
Hmm.
You know, the list just goes on and on of who they handle. And those bands, when you get them all, Stephen Pearcy, Quiet Riot, all these bands are handled by Sullivan. These packages all get put together, and there's huge audience that comes out, sell out audiences all over the place when you put, like, you know, two or three of these bands together. I mean, we've played several of them, well, especially with Slaughter. We love playing with Slaughter. That's one of our favorite. But we, you know, we've done Queensryche, Striper, Quiet Riot. We've done a bunch. Stephen Pearcy, we've done a bunch with, and it's great to see the audiences thriving. But you look out there, they're basically a much older audience. But a lot of these people are bringing their kids with them to the shows so that they could say, this is what your dad or your mom was into, you know, check this out. And the kids are getting into it, you know, getting all hip to the 80s stuff. So yeah, it's circling around again. And I couldn't be happier, man. I think it's great because there was so much of that music that was great, you know.
Oh my gosh, man! And I mean, what happened up here was as soon as they had ran out of bands to sign in Seattle, they came. Honest to God, they came to Halifax, and Sub Pop Records started signing grunge bands here. It was nuts.
Yeah.
And that era, I would call 1983 the first phase of my music career dying, because it literally did, right? What do you have on the go? Well, one of the things, just before we wrap up, because this subject comes up a bit, with people that
Ozzy, the Ozzy
well,
thing.
sure, why not?
Okay. No, I got so much we could talk. I mean, you and I could go
Sure.
on forever. My life has been insane. I was endorsed by Kramer Guitars back in the 80s. I didn't have a record deal, but the president of Kramer saw me play, and he took me on as a personal thing. And all the, Eddie Van Halen was their big guitar player back then. And it just so happened I get a call from him on a Wednesday, and he says, Jimmy, Jakey Lee's out of Ozzy. They have somebody they're already working with, but we sent your tape, and Sharon Osbourne loves your tape. So we're sending you to California. And I said, oh, my God. I said, okay, great. I says, when am I going? Next week? And he goes, no, today. You got to leave right. You got to get to the airport right now. So I flew out. I'd have no time for, rehearsing anything, but I knew about, 4 or 5 Ozzy songs from a cover band I played in. So I went, brushed up on them when I got to the hotel, and they picked me. Ozzy's, road guy picked me up and brought me right to the studio. And it was Randy Castile and Phil Suzanne. And that's how they auditioned. All the guitar players had to audition with them. When I got there, Sharon Osbourne was there. And she sat there while I played, because she wanted to see if she just wasted a plane ticket. Anyway, I did great. And then the next, she says to me, well, I'm bringing you in to play with Ozzy. So the next day, I go to a whole different studio that had a big stage and everything, and in comes Ozzy. And this is when he had just shaved his head. He had that tattoo up right here that he had done. And I say this all the time, but you see Ozzy in magazines, you see him on TV or whatever, but when Ozzy walks in a room to you and you're face to face with him, it's a whole different ball game right there. It's kind of wild. Anyway, I get up there and I did incredible. And I did about 4 songs and a guitar solo. They sat down with me and they said, well, it's between you and Zach. So, I couldn't have been happier. So a little time goes by and I didn't hear. And then finally, I heard that they, had kept, stayed with Zach. It really crushed me. I had met Zach while I was out there. He came into my hotel room. We jammed and everything. Great guy. He looked a lot like Randy Rhoads back then, too. He didn't look like he looks now, But about a month later, I got a call from my phone rings. I'm in Connecticut here. And the guy goes, is this Jimmy? I said, yeah. He says, I got you. My name's Terrence Butler. He says, I got your videotape from Sharon, and I'm putting this other project together. It's this and that, and I'm going, Terrence Butler. I go, who is Terrence Butler? And I went, oh my God, that's his Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath. I flipped out. I'm going, oh, this guy's my favorite bass player in the world. And so I ended up going to work. I went to London and started working with Geezer. And then, so many things had happened. It was pretty cool. I ended up writing a song. He asked me if I had any songs that were similar to a Black Sabbath song, and I wrote this song called Master of Insanity. I wrote all the lyrics to it. I'm not lyrics, all the music. He wrote the lyrics. I had the title in my head. So we, nothing ended up happening with the band. Something happened with the record company we signed with. Somebody did something wrong, of course. And then it ended up where I got a call from Gloria Butler, Geezer's wife, and she says, Jimmy, I have great news. Master of Insanity is going to be on the Black Sabbath Dehumanizer album.
Nice.
So, I have a song on there. Of course, it doesn't give me songwriting credit, and I wrote the whole song because they said Tony Iommi would never allow a song from another guitar player on there. But Ronnie Dio wrote it in a book that I wrote it, and so did Geezer Butler in his last book that he just came out with. So, yeah, it's great. It's been a lot of fun, and I've had a lot of things. I was in the 80s. I did a tour with Joan Jett. I'm in a movie with her and Michael J. Fox, a movie called Light of Day. So, I mean, I could go on forever with you.
But here's what's interesting, because we talk a lot. It's funny. People are like, "Oh, Sean, you're a broken record," but talk a lot about, because I've had the opportunity to meet some cool people through this podcast. Like one of my buddies is Francis Ruiz, that plays with Buck Cherry, and Francis was a drum tech for a bunch of guys before he got his gig.
Yeah.
Everybody has this story about a fellow guy from Connecticut, Matt Starr, another guy.
Matt Starr, very good friend of mine. Very, very good friend.
Always talking about network, build your network. You want to get next level, meet the people that are doing next level. But the other thing that they talk about is time management. And you're a guy that's in multiple projects.
Yeah.
Is that a challenge for you? Do you handle that yourself? Do you have somebody that helps you? How does that
work? I handle it pretty well. Beyond Purple is my tribute band. We're a tribute to the Deep Purple family tree. So we do, the 3 different singers that were in Deep Purple. And then we actually, Joe Lynn Turner actually sang for a version of Deep Purple. We actually covered a song from that too. But we also cover Rainbow, Dio, Whitesnake, everything that branched off of Deep Purple. Because there are so many singers. With Rainbow, you had Graham Bonnet, Dio, Joe Lynn Turner. I mean, the list goes on with Rainbow. So you could really take it in all these different directions. So I have a ball playing with that band. That band is really, really good too. If you ever get a chance to see any of the videos and stuff, Beyond Purple, we have a great singer that covers all those guys. Nice. Fabulous. And I'm waiting for House of Lords. I'm waiting for James to say he wants to tour, because that was my only problem, that I went and did all these other things because House of Lords wasn't working enough. I like to tour, and I know House of Lords is only big in Europe, and I know it costs a fortune to get over to Europe. So everything's got to be extremely well planned out. You got to keep going. It's not like you go over to Europe and you're on tour. I mean, you got to somehow work, to pay your hotel bills. It's not like you're coming home and then going back. You got to make things happen so you could, and of course we're all older, so we're not stacking up and, doubling up in rooms and stuff. We always have our own rooms, and it can't be a lousy hotel. It's got to be a decent hotel. That's just the way we are. I'm 66. I'm not a kid anymore. So I'm not about to, do that type of stuff. But it's all good, man. I've had a good life. Did I achieve exactly where I wanted to be? People think I have, but me personally, I haven't. I'm always looking for more, and I'm still searching for more. I'm still looking to get ahead. That's why I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't do anything. I keep up on my practicing, constantly trying to improve myself, take on different styles of playing, whatever I could do to make myself better.
Well, and I mean, guys that aren't 66, that are in their 30s and 20s, aren't doing that. I mean, I talk to people all the time about practicing. I mean, you have to. It's just you have to. People just, they don't get. Well, I shouldn't say they don't get fooled, because people do get fooled by, I think, mediocre talent. They do, but I think to stay at the top of your game, you have to always be constantly going at it. So that's amazing.
Well, yeah, you got to. I want you to keep in mind something very important too. I grew up in a time when I was learning guitar, there was no such thing as a computer or the internet. Everything I learned, I had to learn by ear, by a record player, putting a needle back and forth, or a cassette machine. When I got a cassette machine, that was a step up, that I could keep reversing the part. But there was no way, some of these things I was trying to learn, I used to put the record player down to speed 16 on just so I could possibly hear how the Richie Blackmore was picking a particular lick in Lazy or something. What I had to go through to learn stuff was a nightmare. These young guitar players today, there's so many amazing guitar players out there now, because these young players have all the technology that they need to learn to play the guitar. If you want to learn something, there's 1,000 guitar players on YouTube showing you how to play that one solo. You know what I'm saying? That was not an option when I grew up. Everything had to be done by ear, the best you can. Did that hinder me? I don't know. I think it helped me in a lot of ways. It built my ear. It built my drive and my drive to want to practice, to put the time in. You know,
I think it gives players more soul. I mean, like, you know, I saw videos, Simon Phillips, and he had like 18 cameras on him, like both feet, both hands, overhead. So like there wasn't an angle. Video. Well, there wasn't an angle that you missed. Yeah, so you know what I mean. A little fun here before we end. So obviously you're a huge Blackmore fan. So your favorite era of Purple would be what?
Wow. Well, I'm an Ian Gillan guy, but I love Coverdale. Don't get me wrong. I love the Burn album. I was iffy on the Stormbringer album. Not that there wasn't great songs on that, but definitely the Burn album was good. But my two records that were my Bible were Machine Head and Made in Japan. Those two records, I wore the grooves off. I mean, I have this thing, you know, I posted, you know, because House of Lords, the album that the new one is going to be available on a double album. And I, you know, coming from that album era, there was nothing greater than double albums. One of my first double albums was Grand Funk Live. And I played that when they were the trio, you know, before they added the keyboard player. I played that record to death. Humble Pie, Rockin' the Fillmore, that album, absolutely loved it. Made in Japan. You know, there was that music just really, you know, did something. And that was another thing that, you know, before you end, the guitar players nowadays, I grew up at a very great time where I had these guitar players to listen to. Alvin Lee from 10 Years After, Johnny Winter, all these cats from back then. These young players, they're starting off by listening to Eddie as their main guy, their first guy, or even after that, Yngwie. Can you imagine like Yngwie being your first guitar player? That's like, okay, so you're automatically thinking that's where it starts with Yngwie, right. and then you got to go this way. And there's this whole thing going all the way back here that could really mold your playing into something different. You know, there's so many of those neoclassical guitar players out there, and they're all amazing, but they all, you know, they all sound alike to me. Some of them do, you know, some of them try to be a little different, but you know, it's all Yngwie's that guy, you know, that he's the one. So when I hear the neoclassical thing, my mind goes to Yngwie because he, you know, he took what Richie did and went steps further with it, you know, so.
Right. Favorite era Rainbow?
Oh, well, that's another iffy thing. I love Dio. Yeah. Ronnie Dio is my favorite singer in the world, hands down. My favorite. So yeah, I love the Rainbow Rising record. I thought was incredible. I thought the first two records with Silver Mountain, the one with Silver Mountain on it, and Rainbow Rising, I thought was incredible. But then, you know, when Richie went over and started to get a little bit more commercial, there's a lot of the Joe Lynn songs that I really like because I'm a song guy. Like, even though I could play all kinds of stuff, I am not an instrumental guy. I do not like instrumental records. I am not one of those guys that'll pick up an amazing Steve Vai record and put it on and listen to it because it just is not what I'm into. And people say, what's your favorite band? I say AC/DC. That's my favorite band. I like hearing straight ahead rock songs like AC/DC with a drummer that's just going boom, crash, boom, you know, a 2/4 beat, and just a really cool guitar solo, you know, no more than 20 seconds, no more than 30 seconds long at the most. That's how I write all my songs. Everything is simple. But you know, for House of Lords, like you got to write melodic rock songs, but my solos are no more than 30 seconds, 20, 30 seconds. That's it. I'm done. You know, you get what you can do. You get it across. when I play live, I do a guitar solo by myself. There, you could see what I could do live. You watch me live. There's my guitar solo by myself. So, yeah. So I'm about songs and vocals. A good hook, everything. That means a lot to me with writing.
And we're gonna wrap it up with this because I mentioned the Canadian connection, and before we started recording, you said you spent some time in Montreal. You went to the studio. You recorded at the studio. Just talk about that a little bit because my Canadian viewers, they love this stuff. They love it.
Well, I was working. I came up I used to play this club. I was in a cover band, and we played all up and down the that upper area, and then we made our way over to Montreal, and we played at this place called the Mustache Club in Montreal. It was right next door to the Montreal Forum on right off of St. Catherine Street. I even remember the street. I mean, it's amazing. I was playing there, and the place was packed. It was absolutely packed. And this guy comes up to me afterwards and goes, I back then I was doing an entire set of Van Halen. I was doing all the stuff, and not many people were doing it. And the guy says, "What are you doing?" And I go, I didn't know what he meant. I go, "What do you mean? What am I doing?" I go, "I'm playing." He says, "You got any stuff that you write?" I said, "Yeah, I write some stuff." He goes, get your band. So I got the band. Next thing I know, they bring me to the studio, and I started working with this producer, Andre Perot, his name was. He had done some work with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and he had this beautiful studio. I don't know if it was down on Saint Denis or somewhere towards Old Montreal. And we started recording there, and then he's the one that brought me up to Le Studio, and I got to record there. I got to see the famous lake where the picture of Neil Peart's drum kit is out in the middle of the lake, and everything. It was just the most amazing experience, and I loved it up in Canada. I went up there. It was a lot easier to get across back then. I went up there. The guy says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm going up to jam with friends." And I went up there. I had all my amps in the back of my car. I mean, a whole stack in the back seat of my car. And I was just up there for a long time.
Well, yeah, and it's a shame what that studio is basically. It's dilapidated.
It's done.
Now. Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah. But it's a huge part of Canadian history because, many people recorded there. So that's great. Look, my friend, I want to thank you for doing this. It was nice to finally meet you because I've got a lot of common friends, and it's cool to meet, cool to meet new people, but it's cool to meet guys that are playing with people that I grew up listening to, and they're good people. They're not idiots. That's a beautiful thing.
That is a good thing, isn't it? It's good to have people. Yeah. I know what you mean. And this was a real pleasure interview, Sean. I had an amazing time on it. If you ever feel like doing another, I've got look up my bio on my website, and you'll be able to see. You could ask me another million questions anytime.
You know what? I'm going to do my homework, and I'll do just that. We'll be in touch. Thank you so much, Jimmy.
You're welcome, buddy. Thank you. Take care.
We're back after this.